Hello there. Who's this? This is Greg. Finally, I'm having a conversation with him today. He's involved as the director of Troilus and Cressida play. I'm going to be asking some questions today to get some answers. Lovely. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time today for the chat and the questions.
A pleasure.
I'm sure the audience will be really intrigued to see how things are for you.
Mm-hmm.
So you've been directing the play Troilus and Cressida here, and you've handed it over to the actors now. So how are you feeling now about the play? How are things for you?
I'm very excited about it because it's, if you've directed it properly, the actors take possession of it, and when you come back and see it, there are all sorts of little nuances and changes that have been made. Because to me it's a bit like, as a director, you put the scaffolding up and build the building together, but if when you take the scaffolding down, the building falls down, you haven't done your job very well.
Wow, that's a really beautiful way to explain it, yeah. So, what made you decide to have a deaf actor within this play? What was the motivation for that?
I think there were a number of things, one of which was looking at the play itself and the requirements of the play, and this extraordinary character at the centre of it, Cassandra. And Cassandra has been cursed with, she's been blessed with the gift of prophecy, but she's been cursed that nobody believes her. And so her frustration at trying to express what she foresees is going to be the fall of Troy, I needed to find somebody who would be able to convey both that need and that frustration in the context of two relatively short scenes, and to have a kind of immediate impact. And the idea of working with a deaf actor had come from work that we've been doing at the RSC. I'd seen Paula Garfield and definitely who had been to workshop with us in Stratford, and I guess from quite a long experience of watching deaf theatre, which I realise goes back to, must be about 30 years ago. I saw an American company called the Theatre of the Deaf doing a production of Gilgamesh, and it was amazing. It was, they had fantastic percussion music as well, and they told this story all through their bodies. So when you came into the room to audition, that was really exciting because you brought in this physical passion, which was immediate and really immediately gave me a sense of Cassandra's urgency, I think. And so, and when we talked, and you talked about, a lifetime of frustration, sometimes with being, trying to be understood, being dismissed, and the sense of sort of people going, oh, she's, don't worry, we'll tell you later. All those things, which felt as though Cassandra has that experience. She is, even her brother calls her mad. She's not mad. She is attempting to get across this prophecy that she has. So.
Wow, yeah, it's really emotional to hear you say that as well. And a lot of deaf people have had similar experiences in their life to me. I'm from a hearing family, I'm the only deaf person. And sometimes it's unfortunate, it happens through lack of understanding. They think I haven't got a mind of my own sometimes just because of my deafness, you know, so it's not really seen as an equal per se. And that can be difficult. And it can be a bit frustrating as well and insulting, and that's why I could relate to Sandra so much and get that across, I feel. And for me, you know, that's why I could relate to the frustrations of the character. And it's great as well because it shows the audience as well, you know. It's the same nowadays with deaf people nowadays as well, so, you know, which is a little bit sad.
But you see, you do it with such, you know, we auditioned a number of deaf actors, some very good, but you had a kind of freedom in your physicality. You have that freedom, so that the language that you were expressing through your body was so powerful, particularly on a 3D stage, actually. And I have to say, having seen the live from broadcast in the cinema, the rehearsal that we did live from, you come over brilliantly on screen too.
Oh, that's giving me goosebumps. Wow, how exciting. Yeah, I need to focus on my actors on stage and just ignore do my best to ignore the cameras. Yeah, so we experienced that last week. Ooh, I'm all bothered, all excited now. Right, now let's try and get some of these questions. Obviously, before working with deaf actors, you've mentioned about your experience with the deaf community with Paula and the American companies, the American Theatre Company. Have you had any other experiences as well in regards to deaf performers or community?
Yes, in fact, Cicely Berry, our wonderful voice guru, who passed away very recently, she and I ran a workshop with Grey Eye, so we had done some work with a number of different disabilities and connecting with through Shakespeare. It was just a sort of open experimental workshop, and that was very interesting to me. But clearly, there's just a whole different language to explore, and I think we're in a way, still quite early days in a company like the RSC to really realise what possibilities and potential there is. And you've allowed us to see that.
Oh, that's brilliant. Wow. I think you've answered a lot of my questions already, the ones we've pre-prepared. I'm just going to jump down a few. What were the problems or the challenges rehearsing this play? Can you want to tell us about that?
Do you mean just the play generally, or yeah?
Yeah, just generally, the whole thing really, not just the deaf issue, but just generally, from your experience as a director, any frustrations or issues, and what was the experience like for you with this play?
It's unlike any Shakespeare play I've ever directed, and I have probably directed 3/4 of the canon of Shakespeare plays here in Stratford. I've been very lucky to do that. So doing this play, it's unlike any other because it's a real ensemble play. It's packed with really significant, great parts, all of which you need to cast to the hilt to be really properly, fully cast. And what unlocked it for me was another of the great legends of the RSC, John Barton, who also unfortunately died this year. But Troilus and Cressida was John's favourite play, and I used to talk to him about it. And when he died, his sister sent me a little package. There were 4 copies of the play, which were the scripts he had used in rehearsal, and a sheaf of notes, full scat pages, of notes to the actors, which was a gift to me. And he pointed out that the most important thing with the play is not to generalize it, not to, sometimes it's very funny, sometimes it's dark and sad, sometimes, as in the Cassandra scenes, it's very moving. And the danger is you can go, oh, well, we need to sort of smooth this out. And the biggest thing I learned from John was to allow each moment to be what it is, to be funny, to be tragic, to be bleak, sardonic, and dangerous, and let the audience, if you like, let them sort of almost like these are different beads on a necklace, and the audience is the string that turns it into a necklace. And I think that was the way we worked on it. Detailed look at the text, to find out what's happening in the first place, because there's a lot of story to pack in, and then to really discover the tone of each scene and what you wanted the audience to feel from that. So that was the challenge, and I think the joy of doing it too.
Lovely, lovely. Can you describe to me, obviously you've spoken about the play itself, but through the rehearsal process, were there any moments of joy or moments of like, not sure how it's going, how was that?
Oh yeah, lots. It was...
Just give us a few then.
It's always great, the moment when you get it up on its feet. But I remember knowing really early that Act 5, where all the battles come in, was going to be really tricky, because it's like a very fast film sequence of different shots. And each of those fights has a different quality. There's the silly fight between Menelaus and Paris, who is cuckolding him, who's run off with his wife. That's a quite funny fight. There's the fight between Thersites, the commentator, and the part you also play, Megarolon, the bastard son of King Priam. There's the fight where Achilles murders Hector with his myrmidons. And I remember trying to work that as a sequence with Evelyn Glennie and all the percussion, so it felt like and we started working on that very early, I think, just to shape how those scenes, how those different fights bled together and still retained the different tone of each of those scenes. But yeah, that was a big challenge to get right.
Marvellous. Yeah, and also the music as well, how it's synchronised, it's really, it gives me goosebumps, it's really good. My final question. You seem to be, as a director, you seem to be very committed to having diversity and inclusion within your bodies of work, and how are you seeing that in the future?
I think it's very, very important. Hamlet has this wonderful line where he says the purpose of playing, the meaning of theatre, is to hold a mirror up to nature. And I think it's our responsibility as a company that we reflect back the country that we are performing to. And if you are a young Asian kid growing up in Coventry, or a young black kid growing up in Tottenham, or indeed a deaf actor, or an actor with disability, or a person with disability, or indeed just somebody who comes from all the different regions of the UK, and you don't see your reflection in that mirror, then why would you engage with that? So my strong feeling is that we need to reflect the nation on our stages, so that we really have, you know, and that's in all sorts of different ways. So the gender balance in this particular production is absolutely rigorously 50-50 male to female, and right down to the line counts. But it's not a general thing we've laid on top of it. We've explored the play to see what those opportunities and challenges are, and I do powerfully and deeply believe that that is a responsibility of a company like ours.
Yeah, wow, I've just sort of had a thought in terms of like how you envision things and the 50-50.
Yeah.
What about a 50-50 deaf and hearing?
Well, there you go.
You know, and imagine that you're talking about gender, imagine half deaf, half hearing, but you know, imagine could you imagine that, like, you know, with the signing as well?
I think there are so many different opportunities, and I think there are all sorts of explorations that we still have, because it feels to me now we're having a conversation, and we've been having a conversation for a while, but now we're putting it onto our main stages, and I think it's something that we should continue to explore and realise the potential of you know, actors like yourselves with your own particular means and ability to communicate. That's very exciting.
Thank you so much for a lovely conversation. I've really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, there we go. A lovely conversation. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye-bye.